find out whether you're really capable of doing that. Just because I want to be a pilot, maybe I don't have the skill to be a pilot. You need to do the self-action, you need
evaluation.
To evaluation. That's right, that's the correct term. You need to evaluate yourself and see, am I actually capable? I might have so many likings in life, but maybe I can't succeed in it. I think you need to identify your potential. You are a great person in what you do. You have identified that you can be the boss. That's why even your team has put you here.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and warm welcome for all of you who are joining us on the 14th episode of the Entrepreneur Podcast. And joining us on this podcast is yet another special guest. He is a well-known figure in Colombo, and it's none other than Outschoon. How's it going, Joel?
Going really good. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Thanks a lot for taking time off your schedule and being here with us. Alright, so let's get started. How do I introduce you? Because you're someone who wears so many hats. You are a YouTuber, a content creator, an MC, you are a TVC actor, voice artist, and also an influencer. But there might be some people who don't know you, so for those people, how would you describe yourself?
Should I start off with my name again?
Yes, of course.
No, not at all. You said it perfectly right. So, Joel, a normal, ordinary person who tries to do something different. I always believe that there is a lot of space for change. So going with the flow, going with the change, and trying to experience new sides of life. That's why because you said all the others.
Yes. I am not the professional host here, but I hope I did justice to the different hats you
wear.
You're
already doing 1000%
appreciate it. So all the hats you wear, the one that intrigues me the most is the fact that you're an influencer. Now, as much as it intrigues me to hear that term, it sometimes does confuse me as well, because that term gets thrown out a lot. And I'm a little confused sometimes, So can you help me understand a little bit? Who is an influencer? And do you think that word sometimes get abused a little bit?
Who is an influencer is actually a good question. In my context, basically there are a lot of people out there who think, influences this, influences that. But in my context, what I believe is a person, by the term of an influencer, someone who could actually influence another person. That is my term of an influencer, not just looking pretty, looking good, wearing the best clothes, wearing branded clothes, spraying the best perfume just for camera is not what it means. Yes, it does matter to an extent, but I believe if you can create that influence also on a certain person, be it in terms of a product, be it in terms of a service, I think that's the part which I believe is an influencer. Like you said, there are a lot of people who have misused this term as an influencer. Maybe, the likes, the follows, then who else?
The vanity metrics.
Yes, all of it. Just because you have that, that takes you to a certain extent, because from a brand point of view, they might obviously look at your numbers. For example, whether this person, whether he or she is a good person to be on, to make the best brand fit and expose the product to a maximum audience. Yes, it does matter, but I think after all what matters is the content which you create and which you deliver, basically which brands you work with, how you actually portray yourself, not being on everything and anything. Selection matters, and I think it adds up to a lot of criteria. People might agree, people might disagree, but I would like to put the term influencing in that space.
That's a very interesting point that you brought, because this is something I thought about last night when I was preparing our conversation topics. One reason why I think sometimes influencers in Sri Lanka try to take up all these projects as opposed to kind of standing for their causes is probably because it probably doesn't pay them as much as an international gig. For an international influencer, you're probably going to get paid in dollars, and then you can be very selective with the brands you work with. Whereas here, when you're a full-time content creator, there's only so much scope you can work with. Am I thinking correct?
There are two sides to it. I would say, so basically, like you said, are we getting paid enough for the work we do? Okay, is it going to be a full-time job, a content creator, full-time job, influencer? Does it work here in Sri Lanka? I would say if you select the right brands and if you portray the best to the client, for an example, you're working with X brand and you give your best to the brand, you know what, I can offer this much for you, I can offer this thing to you, we can reach to this audience. If you portray yourself right, I think that is also a part of your living. You can live on it. There is nothing to say that just because you're a content creator you can't. You can. Let's forget the international. Let's focus on Sri Lanka. To live in Sri Lanka, if you create proper content, and if you touch the right people in terms of brands to now there are agencies who you work with. So if you speak to them properly and if you pitch the correct product, the offering is given right, I think you can live on it. It's not a problem.
And it also comes out genuine, right?
Yes.
When you are like
Yes.
selective with the brands that really represent your lifestyle and what you stand for.
Definitely.
So you Joel, as someone who comes from a traditional media background. Yeah? You used to work for a media giant in Sri Lanka,
Yes.
probably the largest, Maharaja, for 8 long years.
Yes.
And you started as a presenter, moved on to becoming a sales and marketing manager selling radio, and then moved into digital.
Yeah.
So can you take us through that experience of your career at Maharaja?
My career at Maharaja was actually, I think, the turning point in my life. All credit goes to Maharaja because the brand, in terms of Joel, at least from friends to family, was gone out, as in people got to know the person because of Maharaja. A lot of respect for the company and the people who have molded me to be that icon. So I believe, okay, like you said, I started off at Maharajas in terms of with this, I'll quote the term, it goes as executive news reporter. So from executive news reporter, then editing, producing, it's not just the face you see on TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work you got to do in the background in terms of writing your scripts, editing, going on reports, field reporting, all that. All of it happens. Being on TV, I think it's just a little portion of
that part, nobody sees that.
Nobody
all
sees
the work
that.
that goes behind it.
Like it's in the BTS, behind the scenes.
camera, yes, correct.
All of it. So from there, what happened was, yes, I was able to explore a lot, and Maharaja created the pathway for me to do all that. And from there, I got into marketing as well because they thought, okay, I feel like this person Joel is not only just to be on camera. Maybe you should do different types of work as well, because I used to do CIM as well. So with CIM and all of that coming into play, I thought, okay, right, marketing is something which I'm passionate about. And from there, they said, okay, why don't you take over some news operations in terms of marketing, taking the brand out there, speaking to people, billboards was something which I did for news. Different, it was a new experience speaking to agencies. Then I went to an internship at an agency as well, a well-known agency in Sri Lanka. So I worked there for about 2 to 3 weeks. That's because the organization wanted me to get a feel of how the agency works.
Okay.
So from there, they found out that there's potential. Then I, with my passion to do marketing as well, try out sales and marketing. But then it happened to be like a full-time sales thing. And traditional from radio went up to ending up my career in terms of Maharaja to digital. Evolved. The life with Maharaja evolved. Yeah.
Got it. But how was it trying to sell radio in the modern era? Because the whole transition was happening.
Yeah. So radio in the modern era per se, I would say that at that time, because we are talking about a few years ago, digital was actually it was happening, but it wasn't big as then it is now.
Right.
So it was somewhat easy because it was all about selling airtime.
Right.
You don't have a tangible product to say, look here, you will say you're my client and I can't show you this is my product, this is how it looks. No, it's all about selling airtime which you can't even see. And it's just that it's money out there. So it was nice. I got to meet so many clients and it was super. So many clients, so many contacts. It helped me even in what I do today.
Got it.
Yeah.
Let's speak a bit further on that. Now we have the whole digitalization of old school media now. The balance of power in the media landscape has shifted. We have YouTubers who have a whole lot more millions of followers than traditional media powerhouses like the CNNs, to the BBCs, to the Foxes. So what do you think is happening there? It's very interesting, and what do you think should media companies do in order to stay relevant in a very noisy and competitive environment?
To stay relevant, what should a media organization do? What I believe is that you need to maintain uniqueness in whatever you do. Because if you tend to be a copycat, I'm sorry quoting that term, but if you try to be someone else, you try to do what another media station is doing, you're not authentic. People are just going to get bored. Obviously, it's good you can look at international big shows which have performed well and then use that concept to your company and then grow. But the more you stick on to it, I don't think people are not going to like it, because boredom, because now you go on the internet, you see something, even if you search that keyword, there'll be hundreds of shows under that category. But it's all about I think it's right about time that we bring about change in whatever we do. Now this is something new to me as well, which I'm doing with you today, with the group of people involved behind this show. So I believe it's all about evolving. Things have got more casual, it's more pleasing to the audience. So I think that's how things should go about it. Or being unique and authentic.
You said about channels copying. Do you know any such channels that copy?
I can't say, but I think it's evident. Even people watching us right now.
I'm just trying to get some Instagram-worthy content, bro, at your expense. I see you dodged the bullet. Good for you.
Because I've been there as well on that side, trying to do the same.
We'll see. We still have quite a few more minutes. I'll try to get back to you on that. So before going into Maharaja, you tried out of school, was a legal solicitor, and WNS is a totally different job altogether. And you must have been 18, 19 at that time. And what was that experience like?
So how I ended up at WNS was, even I don't know how it happened, to be honest, because there's this break between our advanced level papers, commerce. I did commerce, so then there was between the accounts paper and the BS paper, I think. Between that break, because it was 10 days or something, I went to the interviews. I got selected. Then they were like, "What's happening?" I said, "I'm currently, doing my exams, A-levels." They were like, "What the hell are you doing here? Just go and study and pass your exams. You're selected. Just come back after you're done." So I think I had a week's break right after A-levels. While others were enjoying their lives, I happened to go and join WNS.
Oh.
But it was a good experience because it was UK culture and the foreign culture, and then it was no first name, as in it was only first name basis, no ma'am, boss, that didn't come into play. Right after school, it was a different environment, and like you said, it's completely different to what I do today. But I think it's the first time. I was there for 2 years and I learned a lot in terms of people. The corporate world is different, but from that environment shifting to a corporate to an environment like Maharaja's was completely different. Because from there it was like, if we will say for an example, if your name is Jude, I would just call you Jude, but when I go to a different company, it's it went from the
You have said sir to somebody, no?
Were
you reluctant?
I finding a little bit very uncomfortable.
More traditional setup.
Yeah, I remember when I went to the interview at Maharaja's, I asked them, "So do you all provide dinner?" They were like, "What do you mean by dinner?"
As long as you're paid.
because at WNS, the BPO, dinner was like, it was there. So we always rush for dinner at 7 o'clock in the night because we work until like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the night. So that was a good experience. So getting to know people was something nice.
Just a quick insertion of a business news. I think Goldman Sachs just pumped in $90 million for WNS over the last few days.
Okay.
So maybe you should consider rejoining them. Free food in the night.
Get my dinner sorted.
Alright, so then, see, this next question I have is something a lot of our viewers might be wanting to hear, because some of them are aspiring entrepreneurs. They are probably still doing a corporate job, or students looking at this field and trying to find the right time to make the jump as a full-time entrepreneur. And you're someone who's done that, been there, done that as a corporate executive or manager, and then jumping into entrepreneurship. So what was that spark that made you jump, and also what do you think is the right time for a corporate person to jump into entrepreneurship?
Speaking about time, I'm not sure how I'm going to explain it, but the spark, you mentioned about the term spark.
Yeah.
To be honest, so it was like, they say, it was lighting up and it was getting off in terms of my life. So every time I think, okay, today I'm going to walk up to the management and say, "Look here, Joel is about to quit. I want to quit my job, or I want to do something different." Every time I want to do that, something pulls me back. Like it wasn't an instant, like one morning I didn't get up and be like, "Okay, you know what, I'm just going to walk up and say, I'm just giving my resignation, I'm going to do something different." No. But it took a lot of effort, a lot of stress. It was really hard. It wasn't an easy decision because I've been in
for a long time.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yes.
And then what am I going to do? The country situation was bad. COVID, to name it, everything was happening, and like within the span of 2 years, things were really bad. So I'm like, okay, can I survive? I just got married, that pressure, but thank God I got no pressure from the back end. As in terms of my marriage, it doesn't play a difficult role for me in that way. But always it's a responsibility. So I'm just thinking, how am I going to manage my finances? How is this person going to survive? But then again, it came to a point. What I felt was the right time was because this is my story. In terms of, I always want to do YouTube, Instagram. I love comparing events, and there's a certain restriction that you work with. As in, when you're working for someone, you're restricted, right? That's a normal culture. So I was like, look here, this picture, this image is not forever. For an example, now I will say I'm 29, 30, no, sorry, I'm 29. So 29, can this in time to come, in about 6 years down the line, can I do the same thing that I want to do when I'm 29? So I was like, look, okay, I need to make that change today. If I go to 5 years down the line, I'll be like, why didn't I do that? I can't be promoting products I'm promoting when I'm this age, when I'm 40, right?
There'll be more baggages as well.
So people will start talking differently. Like they'll be like, what is this old guy doing on, like, that was my picture. I was like, okay, I'll take that the jump and I'll make the decision. So that's how it worked out. It was not easy, not just a one-day decision. I had to speak to I spoke a lot with my wife. Should I do this? Should I, should I make this decision? She's like, if you want to, yes, but she never said no. Even things came my way, I felt like everything just happened. Everything happened for the best.
So here's my second attempt to get you into trouble. If she had said no, Baba, you can't do this, you have to stick here, what would you have done?
Good question. What would I have done? I think because when you're in a relationship, or especially, relationship will put it to a side, but when you're married, end of the day, what matters is happiness at home, right? No matter what you do, no matter what job you do, how much you earn, happiness at home depends on everything. Like, it's not money only, or it's not fame. That doesn't take you far. But happiness at home, like we'll say for an example, we'll make this scenario. You're telling me, so you're I'm just for picture's sake, you're my wife. You're telling me, you know what? Don't do this. So if I'm trying to do something which you don't like, maybe if I really want it, I would convince you. In terms of, I'll say, look here, I want to do this. I'll explain it to her. But if it comes to a point, maybe I will just stick to my old job, because that matters a lot.
Got it, Joy.
That matters a lot.
You're sitting here dodging bullets like James Bond. I see you weaving. Let me. It still is slow. So now you, however, when you were in school, when we had this conversation before, you didn't picture yourself to be a public figure at some point. You were not necessarily the shyest kid, but you probably weren't getting on stage and doing all these gigs back in school. But then all of a sudden you become a news presenter. Presenting the news in front of millions of people, like, what was that transition like? I mean, that must have been
going back to school. Things at school were different for me. Like you
just
said,
to be clear, you're a Peter, right?
Peter. So in school things are different. Like I always wanted to win something on, when we have assembly or something, I wanted to win something, because every time I see, children, their parents coming, when you win something really big, they'll say if it's a cricket match or something, they bring the parents also, so they sit, they have the parents, the family, everyone comes, and then you're applauded in front of hundreds of students. I always wanted, when do I get this opportunity? But things didn't work out like that. So the least I would have done is like prayers during school in my primary. Even when it was a school concert, I remember I just ended up being a crow.
A crow?
Okay.
I was a tree. So at least you had a flying part. You're moving. I was stationary. Sorry. Please go on.
It was different for me. Like maybe there was potential. Maybe it just needed to be explored. As people needed to know that this capability is within me. Slowly, but then towards like the latter part, right after all of those things at school changed for me, because I ended up being like steward, prefect, and then the BHP, all that. So then I got on stage, obviously, for the bench and all. So that happened. I'm happy about it, but I didn't explore this side of life. because I joined WNS. If I really loved media, I would have been, I would have applied to a media job or else got into something related to the field. But that didn't happen because I wanted to be a pilot when I was in grade 6, 7, like a usual person who would say, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor, I want to be a pilot. I said I want to be a pilot, yeah. Then someone put it in my head saying that if you have bad eyesight, you can't be a pilot. So that I think it worked, and then because I used to wear glasses, still I'm supposed to, I don't wear.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how it happened.
Got it.
WNS, while I was in, so I think I need to mention while I was working at WNS, one of my cousin's husband was attached to media, to Maharajas, and then he was like, there's an opening here, why don't you try out? Because I was the kid who used to do my mom's, my auntie's Montessori concerts, their events.
Okay.
So I used to compare their events. So that's how they recognize that, you can do this, why don't you try? And so I get, like, when I was at WNS, I used to host events like Star Awards, to the award, Christmas party, all that happened. That's how I realized, okay, people like what I do, they enjoy, they don't get bored, so why not give it a try?
Because a huge part of being a media personality is confidence, right?
Yeah.
Now, especially when you're doing live events.
Yeah.
I know quite a few media, I have friends in media, and one of the experiences being, because when you're reading media live, you're reading something off a screen sometimes, right? But then you mess up, and then it really affects your confidence, and then it could be a slippery slope where your momentum is going south. Has that ever happened to you, and what would be your advice to get out of such a
So the first reaction would be, for an example, we'll say we are going through a teleprompter right now. So if I miss my script, the first reaction would come off my face, right? My eyes would go somewhere, or
body language.
Yeah, body language is key. So what I always tell people is try to keep that within you. Don't put it out there. As soon as you start reacting, you might start sweating. You can't stop that. But other movements like your hand gestures, your eye movements, your the way you twist your head or whatever can be controlled by you to a certain extent. Just keep all that within you and just try to, even if you make a mistake, you can say, excuse me or sorry or something, you can always continue. Because now, for an example, when I used to do the news, not the prompt is not always at your favor, because it's like you're driving, you need to pedal. So pedal, and then there's a button on the other side to say stop or reverse or something of that sort. So sometimes what happens is this, but we'll say I'm reading a script like the temperature today is 26 degrees Celsius, the temperature in Kurunagal is less, so something of that sort. We are talking numbers, like people, even if it's COVID deaths or whatever, it's numbers.
You can't screw it up.
You can't screw it up. So what happens there is you always have the backup. For example, we have the printed paper, so then you shift from there, you can always move to your paper and you can always say sorry on here, it's not a problem.
Got it.
It's like the president's name, like we'll say the president takes over and a new president is elected. What happens there is, like, if you screw it up, for an example, like you said, you screw it up, you're excused because you're used to that term.
Correct.
So it's a normal thing.
Alright. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the 14th episode of the Entrepreneur Podcast, and we are in conversation with Joel Outschoon. Joel, we just introduced this new segment to our podcast series just to make things spicy. It's called the Rapid Fire Session.
Let's do
You
this.
can't think, you just have to answer.
Okay.
Pretty simple, 5 questions. Here I'm going to go. Are you a tea person or a coffee person?
Coffee for sure.
Coffee. Right. Espresso, Americano, any preference?
Anything. I think coffee is good.
Morning person or night owl?
Things have changed now, it's more like anytime, it's fine.
What made this change?
Work.
Sure. Okay, good. Mountains or beaches?
Beaches. Can't climb much.
Correct. iPhone, Android.
iPhone for sure.
I like
I'm
Finally, what's a secret guilty pleasure that nobody knows of?
There's many. I would like to just sit down and eat something nice.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Maybe some nice crepes.
Oh! Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Any preferences?
Can I name brands?
I don't know, it's up to you. Alright, we all love crepes. Moving from there, you have a YouTube channel which has 10,000 subscribers. Congratulations on that.
It jumped 11 or
11,000? I saw a story a few days ago, 10,000. That's the beauty of compounding, isn't it, with YouTube. It's very difficult at the start, you barely get anybody watching it, and then all of a sudden, all those years of hard work start paying off.
Can I just tell you?
Of course.
So what happened was YouTube, how it worked for me was the moment I got off my full-time job, I was able to, as in my corporate job,
Focus on it,
yeah,
yes.
I was able to, I started my channel then.
Oh, really?
It's a brand new channel.
That's like less than 2 years.
No, it's like few months. I
Few
started
months?
it in May.
Whoa.
In May. So it happened. With the first show, things took off.
That's crazy. And what has the experience been like? Because I know for a fact that you have a show called you interview influencers.
Yeah.
So I saw Pia, Pastor,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
guys there. And now you have a brand new show, BFS.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. Yeah, excited.
IFF is coming soon, so we'll see how that goes as well.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a physical show, like this.
So what's your process behind being a YouTuber? You have, like, if you take Pistu Gama for example, right? That guy has created an entire universe
Yeah.
because he has many characters, right? So he plans his entire year out and he knows if you take another character, how it connects with the other character and so on.
Yeah.
So do you also, because unlike him, you're not just doing a YouTube job, you're doing so many other things, so do you have the time for it? What's your process?
No, it's like if I could be myself and relaxed and make the guests feel the same, I think that's a show for me.
Got it.
Just keep it simple and something different
Got it.
to look forward to. So something I realized in terms of YouTube was like English content alone can't survive it.
I was going to ask you.
You need to do a mix.
Got it.
I think you need to put a little bit of Sinhalese and then appeal to the different audience, because if I started off as a full English thing, but then I realized it's good to diversify the whole
Got it.
thing in terms of the language. So it works well.
But you're bilingual. What if there's someone who only knows English? What any advice you would give them?
If you're only good in English, I think you can still try, right?
Yeah.
In using some words here and there in terms of I don't know, like Sinhalese words, it's fine. But if you still want to stick to English, still if the content is good and different and it is interesting and entertaining, I think anyone would watch it. Maybe you
Got
can
it.
use subtitles. It's not a
Subtitles, yeah.
problem. Do something
And
else.
also try to appeal to the global market. At
Yeah.
least the regional.
Yeah.
You also got about Johan.
Because it's not that she did an English song which
Correct, correct.
it's
It's a singer.
Yeah, it's a singer. So that again, it's music, it's about the tone
Absolutely.
and how it sounds. So I think anything is good as long as it has good visuals,
Got it.
good appeal to your ear, that's about it.
Got it. And what has your experience been being a YouTuber? Because you have a lot of guests and
Yes,
I'm sure you studied so many
I think
things.
it's rewarding because end of the day, when you start doing your own thing and when you get all those comments, those
Yeah.
views, it's really rewarding because it's a lot of work, you go in, people to speak to them, arranging everything, it's a lot of effort. So end of the day, when it's all nice, you feel good, you can sit back and think, oh wow, that channel looks good.
Yes. And also less restrictions. Am I right?
Very much.
Because there's no-
Because you make your choices.
Correct.
Because I am someone who sold digital, and I remember there's a guideline I work for,
Yeah.
which is also good, which molded me to be here today.
Yeah.
As in, I learned a lot because of the company I used to work for. So I believe that training, how you pitch, everything helped me grow as well in terms of a entrepreneur. Yeah.
Correct. So we both are 90s kids.
Yeah.
And but back when we were in school,
Hmm.
being a content creator was never in the cards. We haven't even heard of something like that
Yeah.
before. We were like told to do traditional jobs. At least that was how it was in my household.
Yeah.
And for most of my friends. But now the way things are evolving with the Facebook now becoming Meta and everything that's happening, do you think that becoming a professional content creator could be a mainstream career choice going forward? Where like abroad, this happens abroad a lot.
Mm.
I'm talking in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
You think parents would encourage their children if they know that they can sing well or they are funny or they can dance, to encourage them from say 10 years old to become a professional content creator.
I think it's a big yes, because I think personally, we'll say in my life also, if my kids one day say that you know what, Dad, I want to do this, I would be like definitely, because I experienced it, because we are in that generation, and then in 10 years or 15 years time, if they say yes, I think yes, because I am enjoying it right
Yes.
now. And for everyone who thinks being an influencer is about a pretty face, you look good, be on camera, no. There's a lot of work. You need time, so many retakes, so much of editing to do. It's not easy. It's a huge process. Even when you get something for a review, there's a lot of process that you need to go through. You need to find time, you need to organize everything, you need to make sure things are good in the background, you need to be presentable. So there's a lot of facts that you need to consider as well. So I think being a content creator's full-time job in time to come, I would definitely say 1000% please go with what your heart says.
Got it.
Because and not just globally, because you mentioned, let's focus Sri Lanka. I think there are people already who are living off just creating content.
For sure.
There are so many influencers out there.
Got it.
You can.
Yeah. It's crazy, man, how things are going to be in the next 2 years.
Because TikTok, for an example, I was not a personal favorite of TikTok, but then with my new show, not that I create too much of content in terms of myself on TikTok, but then you can see a rapid growth. Like it helps you even in your business. If you're running a business, if you're running a small business in terms of food, or whether it's a perfume brand or anything, I'm just saying in general, we keep it on TikTok because that's another platform that grows.
Yeah.
So I think it works. A lot of people, like even I have friends who are small business owners, from who does frames to mugs to all that. So get on TikTok is something which I tell them all the time. Someone might see, someone might get convinced, someone might follow you.
That's right. So you have to have an open mind and kind of study the trends as well, like what's hot and what's not.
Who knows what's next?
Correct. It's going to be crazy. Yeah. So word is in town that you are most people's favorite wedding MC. Right? They love you. That's the secret sauce. And also, being a freelance career, what's your advice for freelancers in general? If I have to tell one more thing, freelancers sometimes get abused because people say, you know what, I'm going to give you exposure, come and do this gig, I'm not pay you this time, but if you work with us in the long term, we're going to pay you money, but exposure doesn't put food on the table. So your advice, so first of all, maybe talk a bit about your MCing career and then your advice for freelancers.
So you said about Wedding Emcee, how did this whole thing come around is also by, I don't know, I never thought about it as much. Because every time there's a family wedding, if there's a friend's wedding, they're like, because they see me on TV. So they're like, hey, can you just, maybe give the propose like a toast or something, or do the investment speech. I'm not personally a big time favorite to speeches because you need to get very personalized. Because there are some people calling me saying that, hey Masa, can you do that, a toast for me, or maybe you can.
But you don't even know the
so it's hard because you can't connect, because you know your language, because you can play around with words. That's okay, you can get away with it. But I believe. MCing, how it came into play was kind of like, okay, this is an untapped market in Sri Lanka, but there are people who do it. But let's try it out as well. So I remember myself being at few weddings as well, and then connections happen in terms of people seeing me there, and they're like, okay, how does it work? Still, people are getting used to it because of the whole Corona thing and COVID outbreak. Weddings got cancelled. For 10 people, you can't be an MC for sure. But still, there are people who see that as a need. So I think it adds a lot of color, and I love to be a part of a day which two people are together, they're happy about. So you call it. Yeah, it's nice. For sure. It's really nice. So
and the second part of my question on freelancers, advice for freelancers.
Advice for freelance, a lot of people even DM me on maybe IG or any platform, and they're like, Aya, how can we succeed? I want to be someone like you. I want to learn, do news reading. I want to do my own show. Every time what I tell these people is first find out whether you're really capable of doing that. Just because I want to be a pilot, maybe I don't have the skill to be a pilot. You need to do the you need evaluation. That's right. That's the correct term. You need to evaluate yourself and see, am I actually capable? I might have so many likings in life, but maybe I can't succeed in it. I think you need to identify your potential. You're a great person in what you do. You have identified that you can be the boss. That's why even your team has put you here. So I think it's about doing that evaluation and being identified by the rest of the people close to you. So maybe like in 10 people, your friends, Masa, I think you know what, you can do this. So you need to win that trust. And another thing is be unique. That is main thing I always say. Don't people say I want to be like you are, I want to be. I'm just using the term because that's how I get the message. I said you don't have to. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you telling me that. But I think you have to identify your spot in terms of how unique you are.
Your individual identity.
Yes, you need to maintain that identity. So, and in terms of pricing. Something which you also asked me was like, how do you manage? Like, is it going to be exposure over income? I believe. My first gig, I believe, was also something which came to me from a good event company. They had recognized me and they approached me. So if I said, I'll do it free of charge, that would have been the death of my industry. As in, I wouldn't be able to grow. The moment you give a person, will say, Masa, I'll do it free. A friend, yes, you can work out something, that's fine. But if you're reached out through a client or something, always value yourself first.
That's right.
If you don't put an individual value to yourself, how can you expect the world out there to pay or
That's
pay
right.
for whatever you do?
100% agree.
It's not the big value. You can't put big numbers, for an example, at the start. Oh, you know what, I'll charge 100,000.
Yeah,
You need to be practical. You play with you first win their heart over something nice.
Correct.
Because your offering needs to be great.
Sure.
Because first day, if you come free even and if you don't do a great job, you're not going to be hired for the rest of any of the events. But you come at a price, you do this, you do your best, and that's about it.
Correct. That's some good advice. Thank you. Joel, you're someone who's been in this industry for a long time. When I say in this industry, there are quite few industries that you touch, but specifically the arts, entertainment, and media industry. What is your take on those industries in Sri Lanka?
I think it's an evolving industry, for sure. Digital coming into play, things have turned, as in tables have turned from where it was. And an industry where you can explore it at its best. For an example, if I'm just talking about myself. Now, just because I'm like you mentioned, the industry, there are so many avenues in that I can capitalize on in terms of YouTube, for an example. Being on social media in terms of Instagram and influencer, voice artist, event MC, wedding host, a TVC, model in terms of corporate commercials or whatever it is. So there are different avenues that you can explore rather than now, we'll say for an example, if you're, I'm not throwing stones at any industry, but if we'll say if you're I'm not sure if I'm using the right words, but we'll say you're a lawyer, it's a profession, you study so much and all, but there's in terms of whether you're a criminal lawyer or whether you're into, company lawyer, civil, all of it, right? But here there's a huge area that you can work on, and by the way, no offense to anyone I just mentioned as an example, but I'm sure there's scope in each and every industry out there as well. But here there's a lot that you can explore to, and if you play your cards right, there's a lot that you can do, and you can do it comfortable.
I'm assuming it's rewarding as well.
Very much.
It's really as the icing on the
Because
cake.
that's what I meant in terms of rewarding a comfortable lifestyle.
That's right.
You can maintain a very comfortable lifestyle once you make your way out there.
Got it. Who is your favorite entrepreneur of all time? It's either an entrepreneur or an artist.
I specifically, I don't want to be mentioning a person out there. In terms
Mention it.
The thing is, I'll tell you why. There are so many people. For an example, even if you look at the Otara, the Dilip, all of them, they are great people, amazing people. But they are recognized for who they are. Right? No offense, because I work with them closely. I would be hosting them as guest interviews to come. But what I feel is, if I believe that they are unique, the industry recognizes them for who they are, in whatever scope of work they have done. If I also would say that, this is someone I look up to, no, I would always say I learn on my experiences. I have fallen, there's so much more for me to explore in this world, this industry. I'll just say that it's a daily dose for me.
I've never seen someone dodge bullets like you. You're like a master.
It's part and parcel of the industry.
You should be part of the next one.
You learn from the industry.
I need to learn from you. So what can we expect from Joel Outschoon in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, so that would be.
How about a movie? First Sri Lankan to be in Hollywood.
Oh, that's
like
first I need to be hitting the gym like this quite often for that.
Good luck with that.
Next 5 years, so can I also say something? I have this fantasy in terms of because I'm exploring things like right after I got off the full-time job, I am able to be on TVCs like commercials is something which I always wanted to be. I would love to be on a billboard one day. So those things have happened. So my next thing, I know it might sound very cheeky, but I would love to be on a music video. It's something which I would love to explore. Just picking out
Any name drops? Anyone in particular?
Not
In
really.
case they're listening to this.
Not really. I think.
I hope they're listening to this. No one? How can you be so diplomatic, man? Give me something.
No, actually, I'm not like, if it's something right, I think I would go for it. Obviously, I can't there are restrictions in terms of my scope as well. But then I'm ready to explore everything because I feel because you live one life, right? So I want to explore everything. Not bad things being explored. But
So it's not when you started as a technically a lawyer, a legal solicitor.
legal solicitor, it's a different field, like not
Fine.
Yeah, legal.
And then you moved into media, and now you're an influencer content creator. I think you should get into foreign relations next.
Really?
Because you're very good with diplomacy. But this has been a very interesting and entertaining podcast for me, listening to you.
Likewise.
Thank you for
Likewise.
entertaining us.
Thank
But
you.
now we are going to move on to this new segment that we introduced, which is the final five, which is how we are going to outro this podcast. So this is my last chance to try and trap you.
Let's see how you're ready. I'm ready.
It's an evil laugh. And then first question.
Okay.
What's the best piece of advice you have ever received in your life?
Best piece of advice is don't worry what anyone says. Just do what you want to do in life, and then face the consequences.
Amen, I agree with both equally. What's the worst advice you ever received in your life?
Worst advice is help me out. I know it's a very open-ended thing.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah, it's like help
That's
me out
deep.
because okay. Can I elaborate on the same thing?
Please.
So there, I'm a person who would like
A giver.
when that person is close to me, I would like go out of the way to help that person when it comes to even job wise or whatever. But I have burned my fingers so much. There are instances that people have just pushed me and walked past me, which is also an experience of life. But I think I would continue to do that. But yeah, it's a learning for me.
That took a very dark twist, but I can relate. So thanks for opening up. And let's try to make it a bit happy. What was the happiest memory of your life ever? Or it could be the saddest. It's up to you to decide.
Happiest memory of my life was okay. Happiest memory.
Not being the crow, right?
No. Okay, so this is what happened. Happiest memory of my life is I was at the 50 over match. And obviously, you know what happens with cricket matches, boys get together, we have a good time, all that. So, how do I say this? Okay, everyone has a shot or whatever at a cricket match. So, happiest memory was me walking up to a strange person who I've never seen, friends of friends, walking up to that person and asking, can you give me a hug? And that person rejects me, said, sorry, I don't hug strange people. And then you end up dancing for a baila song, which also that person who rejected you stands by your side. And it happens that that person has started to like me, and now today she's my wife. So that's how it happened.
Oh, this guy got 10 out of 10. So she's listening. This guy is. Okay, what is one law you would want everyone in this world to practice?
One law.
One law, or some action, something that you want like everyone in the world to practice.
Acceptance. Acceptance.
Joel.
You can be. I think.
Got it. I feel it.
This whole concept of I'll just touch upon that in terms of this whole. I think I hope I get a LGBTQ or whatever they say it. I think it's a term revolving around everyone. So I think it's not a problem. You are who you are. If you are black, white, green, or anything, just accept anyone for who the person is, job wise or anything. I think it's accepting.
Just let them be them.
Be them.
Respect their individuality.
It doesn't matter. That person, as long as that person doesn't affect your life,
It's not harming
isn't
you.
harming your
Correct.
life, just be with it.
And one last thing, what's your final piece of advice for all the viewers who are tuning in? Just to be clear, these are aspiring entrepreneurs, these are corporate executives who follow business and have huge dreams and passions. So what would be that final piece of advice that Joel Outschoon would like to share with them before?
I would sum it up in terms of my life. Something which I have learned was always remember that life is limited. Like you can't live for like 150 years. Right now, even our generation, I think it must be limited to 80 or so.
Yeah.
So we're limited to a certain period of time to live here. So while you live here, explore everything you can and don't have regrets. So example, my life, I wanted to do something which I love. I quit even before I was 27, 29, my corporate job. So if you want to go for it today, but think whether that will have a repercussion, and always have a plan that you will go for it even if you quit your full-time job. I'm just putting it that way. Just go and explore whatever you want to as soon as possible. Don't wait for it.
Awesome, Joel Outschoon. You are
Thank
very
you very
interesting
much.
personality. If you aren't following Joel Outschoon, you should.
Oh, I forgot the most important thing
What's
is check out the YouTube channel.
YouTube or your YouTube? Both. Joel Outschoon. You should probably spell it out so that they can
No, I
read.
know.
Joel.
You can say Joel.
Joel. That's enough. Your YouTube channel goes
No,
to
it goes with Joel Outschoon. Outschoon is a tongue twister.
Got it.
Outschorn. But then thank you very much to Entrepreneur for
That's
having me as well. I think it's a great team together, and thank you for having me. Wanted to be doing this for some time, but into certain situations I was not able to. But I'm happy to be here and be a part of this. And very well done. I forgot. Yes, you need to subscribe, otherwise you can't watch the full interview.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate it.
And thank you very much. You did a superb, solid job.
You did awesome.
So by the way, check out his music as well.
Yes. It's called Katakari.
Yes.
Shameless plugging. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this podcast. This was the 14th episode of the Entrepreneur podcast. And it was Joel Outschoon who joined us here in this episode. And in episode number 15, we had yet another interesting podcast, a guest joining us, Imtiaz from Sixa Video. So he'll be here soon. This is Abad Fauzan on behalf of Entrepreneur signing off. I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.